Hello, everyone, and welcome to Performance Anxiety's 3 dozenth online reading event, our 36th. We're so excited to be here with you tonight. My name is Tom Snarsky, and I'm so excited to be your host for this evening. Tonight, we are so happy to be here with an amazing group of readers whose talent I'm in awe of and whose work I'm tremendously excited to hear. In case you haven't listened in before, Performance Anxiety is an online reading series hosted via Skype, usually on the third Thursday of every month, and we moved to a new time. We're doing it at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. At each of our events, we feature a group of invited readers whose work we love to share a selection of their writing, sometimes poems, stories, excerpts from work in progress, whatever have you, with us. And having slots every month means we're always looking for people who'd be interested in reading. So if you are or know a poet or writer who'd like to share their work at a future event, please get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you via the Performance Anxiety Twitter account. We're on Twitter at PerformanceANXT, or you can just DM the co-organizers directly. I'm at Tom Snarsky, TOMSNARSKY, on Twitter and Instagram, or you can just email me, tomsnarsky@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with Kristin Garth, Performance Anxiety's other co-organizer, who I'm very excited to introduce right now as our first reader of the night. So Kristin Garth is a Pushcart Rissling nominated sonneteer and a Best of the Net 2020 finalist. Her sonnets have stalked journals like Glass, Yes, 521, Luna Luna, and more. She's the author of Crow Carriage from Sweet Tooth Storybooks and The Stakes from Really Serious Literature, as well as many more. She's the founder of Pink Plastic House, a tiny journal, and co-founder of this very reading series, Performance Anxiety. So thank you, as always, for being with us, Kristin, and thanks for leading it off. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm only going to read a couple tonight. One that I had published yesterday in Ice Flow Press, and it's called Barbie Coroner. At her morgue, she pours a formaldehyde tea into pink plastic cups technicians distribute indiscriminately, slides down synthetic throats, glistens methanol pink, unessential rituals of death, a manufactured dream. Because imitation is habitual, to avoid her kind becoming extinct. No little girl wants a doll who can't die when she learns her own expiration date grows nigh. Details of a ductile demise are dispensable, but a death must wait for all with this pink stargazer Lily Paul. We only love what dies, even a doll. And the second poem I'm going to read is something I wrote today, and it's called Lollygagger. Much of my life, I'm waiting around. Black baby doll dresses, southern asphalt playgrounds, library stocks, and flower crowns, gynecologist waiting rooms to be bought pasta by doctors avoiding their existential doom. Candy hearts sucker, some don't even pay to loom. They are prepared for play, display by men in scrubs, seersucker, or pastel shorts and chambray. Some pull me inside rooms, their eyes on the clock, spending requisite time making small talk without any attention paid to a cock. Is it pretending, even if they know that I probably would? Much of my life, I'm waiting around to be good. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristin, for starting off our reading tonight. That again was Kristin Garth, who you can follow on Twitter at Lola and Jolie, LOLAANDJOLIE. And you can keep up with all of Kristin's projects. She's always got something really excited on the boiler. And right now, I know she's editing a special anthology on Harmony Korine's films, both as director and actor. So keep in touch with all of that stuff at KristinGarth.com, KristinGarth.com. And I'm also very excited that Kristin, having shared something that she wrote today, we have a sort of informal tradition in Performance Anxiety, celebrating new shit. So if you have new work that is fresh or maybe still even being formed and you want to read it tonight, I encourage our readers to take risks and hopefully, we'll get to hear some of the amazing cutting edge work that you are putting together right now. And so speaking of awesome poets who are doing great stuff in the here and now, I'm very excited to introduce our our second reader of tonight, and that is Satya Dash. Satya Dash is the recipient of the 2020 Srinivas Rayapal Poetry Prize and a finalist for the 2020 Broken River Prize. His poems appear in The Boiler, Anomaly, Chestnut Review, Rhino Poetry, Cincinnati Review, and Diagram, among others. Apart from having a degree in electronics from BITS Pulani Goa, he has been a cricket commentator. Awesome. He has been nominated previously for Pushcart, Best of the Net, and Best New Poets. He grew up in Cuttack and now lives in Bangalore, India. So thank you, Satya, for joining us tonight. It's really awesome to have your poems here with us. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Tom, for the introduction, and what a joy it is to be tuning in from India. It's Friday morning over here. Usually a night person, but it's fabulous to wake up early and kind of interact with the forum of wonderful poets and get the weekend kind of flowing in with some poetry. So I'm going to start off reading some poems, and the first one that I'm going to read is essentially something that is close to my heart, and I wanted this poem to kind of represent the messiness of living and how so much of the experiences that we really go through on a day-to-day basis are all interior and exterior worlds, how so much of it is unresolvable, right? So that's kind of the essential essence of this poem. This is called In the Throes. My only resolution is not to have one. In the throes, my only resolution is not to have one. What compares with the soft notes of a beloved's confession? Dark crush of grapes on the ocean's gushing skin, perhaps. I blame my imagination for heartache at times. Ambition wrecks me, you say, your celestial mouth overcome by the acreage of face. Thought is no silk petal, my mind no ilk metal, glints metal, spark owned by light, us owned by reception. I console, quote Plath, for a noble distraction. Despite its fundamental wearing, illuminates, not in light, but sensation. For years, in the face of bafflement, I looked at my mother for distraction. Now, in the immediate aftermath of shocks, a kitchen burn, seasonal disenchantments, minor, major anguishes, I call her to receive the great pleasure of classifying wounds. Christening a site offers a chance to return as a tourist later. If you are fond of lurking as a ghost, you will start loving white hairs soon. I don't think I'm there yet. The milkman leaves a happy birthday note at my door, and I'm left with milky tears for a caterpillar's bath. What one chews is the holy harvest of another. In nature, neurons scatter longing. The delight so often masquerades as embarrassment saddens me. Am I wrong to think I would eat more fruit if I knew its source? Perhaps. Could knowing lie not in measure of a pendulum's amplitude, but in the hypnosis of a bob's swing? Perhaps. Incantatory your gravity, beckoning mine, here is my restlessness, drinkable as an after-dinner poison. Even saints drink their own sweat for a promotion to God. My father snows deep for exactly the same reason. My mother fasts for my father's long life, good health, sharp mind. My father snows deep for exactly the same reason. To explain any of this beauty, you must lie comatose in wonder. Nearing orgasm, I see in the distance the belly's delicate lilt, a wave about to break into tide, a limb quivering like a bamboo leaning towards the cyclone's name. It's you, my eyes rumble for you are 1,000 paths, and each of you strokes 1,000 in me, and oh God, what a stark million, my calibration. The roof scrunched like a bedsheet at dawn. Look how infinite screams infinitesimal. All communion obliterates sense, collapsing into new sense. When stars overhead complain of a gelatinous exhaustion, the eyes wake like marbles in days and read the text you have left. I think you mean some kind of grace when you say, last night I died. Thank you for that. That was the first poem that I had in mind for today. The second one is called Homecoming Sonnet, and essentially about how I don't use my middle name anymore. So my middle name is Prakash actually, and I just wanted a short name, especially when I'm kind of publishing or first earnestly began publishing anyways. So it kind of began as a joke and took a shape in the form of a poem. So this one is called Homecoming Sonnet. My middle name Prakash vanished. I suspect must have somehow entered a forest, but was handed back by a deer on a night of furry autumnal glow. Its mouth leaning through the window almost to my ears. Hey, I found a possession of yours crawling up my back for a seat. But what was I doing at the window? I hadn't desired a sky in years. At my last performance, just before walking out on stage, I spilled a jar of mustard oil on my jeans. I did not have the time to corrupt the viscosity spread with water. I was congratulated for the daring fashion statement the fabric of my glistening crotch made. I was sure to grab headlines had it not been for the protest of broadcasters that night. Technically, an opportunity lost is not a loss, but the rule book of capitalism states otherwise. The stock market boomed daily for 3 years. The link between my salary and the economy remained elusive. Mutual funds were subject to market risks. I grew wary of thieves, my mind taken off things when the deer visited again. The dalliance of the handsome creature with the dispensed mass reinforced its meaning. In Sanskrit, Prakash means light. Thank you. So that was the second poem. The third poem that I have is called The Retired Boxer. And the attempt with this particular poem was to really take one long sentence and kind of make a poem out of it, like a winding road or a river. There's something about a long sentence that has fascinated me for a long time. So this was an attempt to just play along. The Retired Boxer. By the time the huge spots of pigmentation on the road turned out after a series of laboratory tests to be bubblegum spit, the cats that had licked that patch of asphalt were singing, the dogs whistling, the occasional cyclist swerving to avoid this hot pink scab that lit up the eyes of toddlers passing by, their mothers amused and peering hard at the street art, their fathers wary if this was a joke but clicking photos, the stimulus, the mighty flick of a tongue or two, printing a feature of topographic delight, in the way a consequence is beyond reach and still close to a fickle choice, just like the ant in your kitchen, making a last ditch effort to wriggle past the scourge of your careless toe. Another ant trapped in the feathery bristles of your broom, dancing in despair to taste air, its revival heroic, like a boxer bouncing off the ropes after being struck on the chin, back to hugging the opponent's body to get some crucial downtime. A smart ruse to catch a sliver of falling breath, such reflexive embracing, perhaps an understated human dream. And though there is nothing pugilistic about the evening today, the long neck of your mop snaps into two, and lathering the floor on all fours while wiping its week-long grime with an old ragged t-shirt you once loved wearing to the gym, your hands dripping with disinfectant, you're wondering if you will ever enter the ring again. Thank you for that. I will come to the last poem that I had in mind for today. This one is a form that I've tried to develop over the last uh, 8 to 10 months. It's called a sonnet and a half. Kind of builds on a sonnet to give us some extra flavor of a window that is a possibility outside the sonnet of the 14 lines that we generally have seen, right? So this is called Sonnet and a Half for Conceit of the Heart. Sonnet and a Half for Conceit of the Heart. When no one in the kingdom touched X's heart, he grew hungry for the end of desire. It seemed like lust at first, but turned out to be mere call for sanitation, a symmetry imparted by morning ablutions. X wanted everyone to remember he was the youngest king in 1,000 years. When years passed and he was no longer young, the loss of this novelty bothered him. It was difficult for his love of trivia to come to terms with aging. Still, no one touched X's heart. In X's opinion, no one had ever touched him, as a touch anywhere else did not count. Those that touched X elsewhere grew tired of touching. To recover his mojo, X tried fancy hairstyles and got a tattoo of his own face on his chest. He walked around the capital bare, his chin bobbing above his inked skull. But the recurring resurgence of hair on this wild acreage of chest led to its eventual insulation. Frustrated, X sought clarity through enlightenment on the banks of Yamuna. On the 27th day of meditation, X died in his sleep. The doctors who did his post-mortem found a jeweled hollow in the place of his heart. They declared him the truly enlightened one. They got tattoos of X on hairless biceps and napes. X's broad, smiling face was printed on pieces of paper that could buy things such as real estate, precious metal, and healthcare. A new hybrid vegetable was named in his honor, X. Thank you so much. That was the last poem, and this has been an absolute honor and a pleasure. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satya, for bringing us whole worlds in those poems. I'm going to be thinking about the boxer hugging for a break for quite some time, I think. Just as a beautiful image. And I'm so excited about the sonnet and a half. I love sonnets, and I love a sonnet and a half is just more sonnet. So how not to be excited about that. And that again was Satya Dash, who you can follow all of the amazing poetry that you heard and all of the awesome stuff Satya's got going on. Satya's on Twitter at SATYA043 and on Instagram at Satya-043, SATYADASH043. And Satya recently had some work out in Sangam House. That's poetry.sangamhouse.org, so poetry.sangamhouse.org. And keep an eye out and ear to the ground for more of that amazing work. So thank you again, Satya, for being with us, especially this early in the morning. And so waking up early for poetry is no joke. So I appreciate you doing that. And it always feels like a sort of lightning strike when we get to like halfway through the reading order, which, believe it or not, we're actually already there. But I'm very excited to introduce, we have a stellar back half of readers who have joined us tonight. And the first of those who I'm excited to introduce next is C.M. Taylor. C.M. Taylor is a multidisciplinary maker living in Buffalo, New York. Their debut chapbook, Yes and, was a finalist for the 2020 Button Chapbook competition. It is forthcoming from Knight's Library in November of this year. So thank you again, C.M., for joining us, and take it away. I hope to hear from the new book.
Yeah, although if we're doing new ones, I love reading rough drafts. I'm like notoriously terrible at titles. I had a friend for a while who I would send poems and be like, "Hi, what's this called?" And then just like keep whatever he would tell me. So none of my drafts have titles. So this is as yet untitled, but derived from a really cool, like small poetry world conversation that I had a couple days ago. If I could pick one thing to keep when you die, I'd think first of how your nose scrunches and the tip slopes up when you're wicked, cracking dirty jokes to me instead of doing your work on a blustery midweek afternoon. But then I'd think of your wit and be hopeless. I'd picture next that star-field shoulder where freckles dapple you like a carefree pollock, and how that skin tastes when I wrap you to me for sleep and press my mouth in to whisper goodnight. But then the grace of your waist, of your hair. I'd choose the lace of your fingers walking out to our parked car, or your comfy harmony when I sing, but what would I sing anymore, alone? We can go together, I think, keep you whole and flawless till I stop too, but if you need to, if you must, leave without me someday, crack jokes I can hear through trees. Show me galaxies through the James Webb telescope, half as beautiful as your breathing human body, for me to sing to and rain your love down on me in stars, as enormous as all things whole and untarnished, more permanent than one small sun. That's not even that poem, but that's also a rough draft. So you get a rough draft of a love poem as well. Now I'm going to read the one that I meant to read. Hi. And Esther agrees. I told you, she never stops talking, so we might get some commentary on this one. So this is the one based on a cool, funny, small world poetry conversation I had that, like, I don't know, it was one of those moments of being like, you know so-and-so? I know so-and-so. We both think that their poems are really cool. And then we just, like, talked about how cool this person's poems were. And yeah. Always. All right. My spouse fills my car with gasoline on a night we had different obligations and swapped keys. I get home to a house emptied of other human bodies. Still, the cats crowd in to listen while I play my guitar. The blistering winter outside, my old coworker overdrinks called Spring-like 3 different times. Her pants were incredible, and she's clearly taking good care. But her neighbor cries at the end of every night they go out dancing because her son is newly dead, younger than me. A recent friend and I gushed on the phone last weekend about this poet we know and how he catalogs our Rust Belt city with the tenderness of a reunited lover, brushes fingers over sidewalk cracks, whispering, they'll be okay, they're wanted. My friend said what's impressive isn't that he writes it all down, but that he means it. And how. I wonder what I mean about my old coworker's neighbor's dead son, other than he was younger than I can be again. And now more strangers will think of him. More strangers will wish his mother through, and maybe I cannot hold an entire city deftly on the page, but I can mourn the loss of people I will never know. Can tell their mother's friends it's right to let her cry when the lights come up on the dance floor. Let's read some not new poems. So I have this little weird gay book coming out, and it's really weird and really gay, and I like it a lot. I'm gonna read a couple poems from it. I think we're gonna do, actually, this is one that Kristin actually homed in Poke, which I was very, very honored by, because it was like one of those poems that I was like, oh shit, I wrote that down. Oh no, once it was done. But that then, getting that confirmation that it was worth taking up the space was really, really beautiful and cool. I will just give a trigger warning. There's like some like mention of kink. The whole chat book is very queer, like love and sex. It's not like graphic. There's just some throat holding, but it's consensual and happy throat holding. So this is them, but it's spelled Phemme, like femme. A friend of mine and I were talking about how, even though we're non-binary, but we have our them. It's like a femme them, and then we've got our like angry gremlin them personas inside of us. And this is about kind of like trying to figure out where I was fitting in that identity crisis, I guess, at the beginning of coming to terms with identity. So this is them, and this is actually a yes, I love it. I can't pronounce it, but I love it. This is about that, and it's also a sonnet. Them. Without language to fit between the curve of my breast and the indent where hips should flare to keep time, I am marooned in the first pair of boxer briefs I have ever purchased for myself. It is not that this has never been a question. I inhabit a body, and that body is naked and named by strangers when I have never once kept my legs together, in bed or on a bus, and loving to rewrite my face, wear stilettos, watch straight boys lose their tongues, hoping me attainable, does not make me attainable. I am to be coveted and wept for and gripped by the neck and fucked. I am for sex. I am a thing of wonder. I am stronger than anything alive. I am stranger. I am muscle and breast and flat hip, and I want to be held softly, as I want to hold softly. I want pink lips and these boxer briefs, and not to ask questions, and to declare, I simply am. And I think I'm gonna do one more. And I'm gonna try to not like, oh, actually no, I'm gonna do two more. Because one's a little bit like funky and long, and the one's shorter. So this one came out, I think it was it was 3 Moons magazine, which I was like floored. This was one of my, like, you know how you're like, I feel like I always say this with poems, but like you're not supposed to have favorite children, but like you do have favorite children. This is one of my favorite children. This is Matching Pot Leaf Glitter Pasties. And it's partially my favorite child because of that title. So Matching Pot Leaf Glitter Pasties. In this poem, I will unravel every sweater in my closet and try to stop biting my cuticles. In 50 years, it would be so cool to get caught sneaking to the bathroom together at your retirement party. In a year, it would be so cool to still have a roof over our heads. What if in a year we're dead? Or what if we're riding our tandem bike in matching pot leaf glitter pasties? Because that sounds possible too. You're like the part of the party where every buzz is new, and I got to choose the playlist, and everybody likes dancing to Carly Rae Jepsen as much as I do. And we're the taste of beer. We are making out in a stranger's laundry room, giggling and childlike and astonished that at least right now, at least in this cut of the optimistic non-binary bisexual Hallmark movie, we have a house and a yard and a bed where we fuck off our makeup or cry, and maybe we'll get to make optimistic non-binary bisexual babies. And either way, oof, that face you make when you're looking at one of our cats. That face I hope for draped in wrinkles, that face folded up against your pillow when I wake up sick in the night. I remember thinking I didn't know you and realizing I would always. Finally, like something picked up on the sidewalk, or all the unrealistic, unpredictable things that absolutely happened to us both, like how in each new city I have chosen, that moment. I walk into a coffee shop and they know my order and that it isn't ever coffee. And I realize I didn't see the familiar becoming warm because it only took a breath and a habit to be welcomed. It's like that. You let me make room with everything else already crammed inside your heart. And my very last one, thank you. My last one, it's the last poem in my chapbook, and it has a really big title. So this is, if we went to the courthouse tomorrow, I would wear giant red, impractical red high heels, and I would vow sickness and health, and then I would tell you. If we went to the courthouse tomorrow, I'd wear giant impractical red high heels, and I would vow sickness and health, and then I'd tell you, I promise, always, to welcome who you are becoming, to ask again and again, to hoard and keep each new knowing without expectation of its permanence. I'll learn myself and ask inward as we grow up. I'll try when it hurts, and I don't want to, and we'll live as well as we can amid all this, and I'll always honor your tears, and I'll always want to kiss you again, and that is all I know right now. It's not enough for eternity, but nothing is. We don't get eternity. Let's just walk that direction as long as there's something cool to see. And I'll respect your dream of being a robot grandpa someday, if you respect my dream of dying softly and held, surrounded by love and candlelight. I'd like it if you would promise to hold my hand. Thank you.
Wow, what a note to end the set on. And that beautifully, wonderfully was CM Taylor, who you can follow on Twitter at CARMA_T and on Instagram at fine_karma, fine, FINE_CARMA. CM is also the art editor for Variant Lit, so at Variant Lit, VARIANTLIT on Twitter. And they're in the process of creating a movement collaboration as well called The Others. And they're at _the_other_ones_ on Instagram. And that movement collaboration explores themes of groupthink, individuality, identity, community, and boundaries. And after those poems, I'm so excited to bear witness to it in the forms that it takes there. So keep up the beautiful, beautiful work. And thank you again so much for being here with us. And thank you to Esther for, Poetry by Esther that we got in the beginning as well. A hugely important cameo. So it's always a little bit bittersweet to get to our like quote unquote last reader of the evening. But I'm very excited to have someone who's returning to performance anxiety and who is an awesome, awesome champion of poetry and who just does beautiful things in Poetrylandia. And that is Marisa Silva-Dunbar. Marisa Silva-Dunbar's work has been published in Pink Plastic House, Sledgehammer Lit, and Analogies and Allegories. She has work forthcoming in Arlie Jo, Arlijo, and The Bitch and Kitsch. Her second chapbook, When Goddesses Wake, was released in December 2021 from the Maverick Duck Press. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at The Sweet Maris, TheSweetMaris. Thank you, Marisa, for joining us, and thanks for being our ultimate reader of the evening.
Thank you so much. I'm going to start tonight with one of my poems from Pink Plastic House. This was published last year. It's called Kristin Garth Appears in My Dreams to Give Me Feedback. I've been working on a manuscript for almost 4 years now, based on found poems from Allison Mack, who is part of the NXIVM cult and a former actress on Smallville. But I had this dream that I gave Kristin Garth my manuscript and created a poem from it. So here we go. Kristin Garth appears in my dream to give me feedback. She is in the old ship treehouse at Meow Wolf. The white paper blossoms blind in the pink light. I have searched for her, wanting to offer my words, weigh them against a feather, divine the truth. I hand her the manila envelope, holding my manuscript where I perform an autopsy of the last 8 years of her former friend's life. I gift her with orange and green highlighters to help her tell me which parts are like trying to catch snowflakes with a sieve. The pieces she wants to keep tucked into a locket because they belong to a ghost she truly misses. Nothing is linear in the land of enchantment. We run through watermelon mountains, catch the sunset in a wine glass. My hands become my abuelitas, and I show her how to make tortillas and peel green chili. I wait for her to say if my lines burn like the pods and the veins nesting in the chili, or if they're like falling asleep in the field of lavender near the Rio Grande. And then I'm going to read 3 poems from my When Goddesses Wake chapbook. Most of these poems were written between 2018 2020, but I do have a couple that I wrote before, and I want to thank Samantha Rose Johnson because she was always pushing me to try and get a chapbook out of that, out of the column I did for her magazine. Persephone Reborn. In the anatomical theater, I was the cadaver on the table, chalk white and empty of body fluids. No one remembered who I was before the leeches and bloodletting. They said all the old gods were dead. In absentia, on the edge of consciousness, I dreamt I was packed with sand and pebbles, growing succulents, the only plants I could produce through bone and muscle. A body barely worth returning to. What magic was left in me? Who would want a goddess of spring, only useful in the unchanging desert? Death always has a job, even if the title is ever changing. He is honored out of fear. You should have known he despises a life without me, that he would find a way to cultivate a garden to grow within me. He filled my torso with peonies and gardenias and placed chrysanthemums in my heart so that it pulsed with color. He gently placed narcissus in my throat and palms, his own way of calling and clinging to me. Waking, I tasted him in my blood, could smell his familiar scent as if I had never left. It was inevitable he'd find a way to bring me home. This next piece I wrote way before I had the call. I wrote this probably in like 2011, and it was published in Gargoyle magazine in 2015. It's called We Invited Discord to the Family Dinner. We invited Discord to the family dinner. I sighed with disappointment when she arrived early and in style. A dark green sundress, combat boots, cleaver-sharp cheekbones. She didn't mingle with the cousins, sat with her back to the TV. In the kitchen, she stirred the pot of pozole, gossiped with the aunts. They clung together as she needled grandmother for information about forgotten family feuds. She sat at the table near the tortillas, picked shreds of meat off our plates, took long drinks of water out of our glasses, marking them with greasy lipstick. She dipped her fingers in the red chili and swirled it around the edge of the tablecloth. Before dessert, she retrieved a gift for the guests. Her palm rolled the gilded apple against the table, the yo-yo action dilating the pupil of every eye with desire for the golden treat. The fruit slithered away from her careful hand. And then the final one was the last poem that I wrote for Pussy Magic, and I wrote it during the early part of the pandemic, just when we went into lockdown. And I think this is when we thought, oh, it'll just be a few weeks, and it didn't end up being that. But it's called Artio. She slumbers in the cavern. Frost blankets the ground. We bring her strawberries, pineapples, and apricots, her first feast of the year. We're isolated in our own winter, searching for snowdrops and dandelions, promising spring. Her copper-colored hair unfurls, shines like fire. She wakes and roars, her bare spirit shattering the ice on our eyelashes. We must confess why we have hidden our ferocity in her absence, explain why we have let men shrink us into palm-sized souls. They should be quaking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marisa, for sharing those poems, older and newer, with us and running us through the gamut. That again was Marisa Silva-Dunbar, who you can find on Twitter and Instagram at The Sweet Maris, TheSweetMaris. And starting March 2nd, Marisa will be co-hosting the Instagram Wednesdays We Write with Kateri Ransom. So Wednesdays We Write is a creative space that posts poetry prompts twice a week and shares the work of writers who participate. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you for letting us know about that, Marisa. As you know, Wednesday is always like, you know, it's a beautiful day for poetry, as is any day. But I'm glad that you'll be curating more beautiful work into the world. So I was just checking my phone calendar because I realized I didn't have the correct date for when our next reading is, because our next reading is actually on St. Patrick's Day, which is a little bit of an odd one, because, you know, believe it or not, we're at the end of our reading order for tonight. And, you know, I just wanted to sort of pause at this moment and thank you so much for all of our readers who shared their beautiful work with us this evening, and to our listeners, whether live or on YouTube, for giving this hour or so of your life over to poetry. And I hope that if you're listening with a sheaf of new poems close at hand, or if you know somebody whose work is really exciting and you think they should, you know, read it into the universe, please, like either yourself or on their behalf, get in touch with us. Drop us a line at Performance Anxiety, Performance ANXT on Twitter, or you can email me, tomsnarsky@gmail.com, or just, you know, reach out any tendril that you can manage, because we would love to have you at our next event, which is going to be March 17th. So we're still doing the third Thursdays at 9:30, and it's going to be really beautiful. We also have some wonderful readers lined up in April who have some great books and exciting stuff coming out. And I had mentioned on Twitter that at the end of this reading, there would be a small surprise, which I hope I'll be able to deliver on, which is in like a couple of years ago, or just before we moved down to Virginia, which is where I currently am, the school I worked at had Poetry Out Loud. I don't know if anybody has experienced Poetry Out Loud before, but it's basically an initiative that gives high school students a big, giant website full of poems to choose from. And they actually will memorize the poems and practice performing them, which was really cool to get to see. I don't teach English, but I did get to sort of sit in on a lot of the performances. And one of the things that my old school did that I quite liked was they let the teachers kind of do ones in between the student performances, essentially to, you know, have us put our money where our mouth was, as it were. And one of the poems that I did for that a couple years ago that I really loved and that I had forgotten about is the title poem of this book by Bridget Eugene Kelly called Song. It's a poem that speaks for itself. So if I still have it, I'm going to try to share that poem with you. So it's called Song. It's by Bridget Eugene Kelly. It's a legendary poem that I won't do justice to, but I'm going to try. So, Song. Listen. There was a goat's head hanging by ropes in a tree. All night it hung there and sang. And those who heard it felt a hurt in their hearts and thought they were hearing the song of a night bird. They sat up in their beds, and then they lay back down again. In the night wind, the goat's head swayed back and forth, and from far off it shone faintly, the way the moonlight shone on the train track miles away, beside which the goat's headless body lay. Some boys had hacked its head off. It was harder work than they had imagined. The goat cried like a man and struggled hard, but they finished the job. They hung the bleeding head by the school and then ran off into the darkness that seems to hide everything. The head hung in the tree. The body lay by the tracks. The head called to the body to the head. They missed each other. The missing grew large between them until it pulled the heart right out of the body, until the drawn heart flew toward the head, flew as a bird flies back to its cage and the familiar perch from which it trills. Then the heart sang in the head, softly at first and then louder, sang long and low until the morning light came up over the school and over the tree, and then the singing stopped. The goat had belonged to a small girl. She named the goat Broken Thorn Sweet Blackberry, named it after the night's bush of stars, because the goat's silky hair was dark as well water, because it had eyes like wild fruit. The girl lived near a high railroad track. At night, she heard the trains passing, the sweet sound of the train's horn pouring softly over her bed, and each morning she woke to give the bleeding goat his pail of warm milk. She sang him songs about girls with ropes and cooks in boats. She brushed him with a stiff brush. She dreamed daily that he grew bigger, and he did. She thought her dreaming made it so. But one night, the girl didn't hear the train's horn, and the next morning she woke to an empty yard. The goat was gone. Everything looked strange. It was as if a storm had passed through while she slept, wind and stones, rain stripping the branches of fruit. She knew that someone had stolen the goat and that he had come to harm. She called to him all morning, and into the afternoon she called and called. She walked and walked. In her chest, a bad feeling, like the feeling of the stones gouging the soft undersides of her bare feet. Then somebody found the goat's body by the high tracks, the flies already filling their soft bottles at the goat's torn neck. Then somebody found the head hanging in the tree by the school. They hurried to take these things away so that the girl would not see them. They hurried to raise money to buy the girl another goat. They hurried to find the boys who had done this, to hear them say it was a joke. A joke, it was nothing but a joke. But listen, here is the point. The boys thought to have their fun and be done with it. It was harder work than they had imagined, this silly sacrifice, but they finished the job, whistling as they washed their large hands in the dark. What they didn't know was that the goat's head was already singing behind them in the tree. What they didn't know was that the goat's head would go on singing just for them long after the ropes were down, and that they would learn to listen. Pail after pail, stroke after patient stroke. They would wake in the night thinking they heard the wind in the trees or a night bird, but their hearts beating harder. There would be a whistle, a hum, a high murmur, and at last a song. The low song a lost boy sings, remembering his mother's call. Not a cruel song. No, not cruel at all. This song is sweet. It is sweet. The heart dies of this sweetness.